Welcome to the Explainer. Your backend just hit a brick wall. Things are crawling. And today, we're going to find out exactly where that CPU time is vanishing to. Picture this. Your API is absolutely crawling. You check the metrics, and boom, CPU usage is pinned at 100%. The knee-jerk reaction for so many of us? Well, the language is just too slow. We've got to rewrite this whole thing in Rust or C++. It's a super tempting thought, right?
But honestly, probably not. You see, most backend services actually spend the vast majority of their time just sitting there waiting for databases or network I/O. So when the CPU path does get crazy hot, the real culprit is rarely the language itself just being fundamentally slow. The actual bottlenecks, they're usually hiding right under your nose inside runtime abstractions. I'm talking about garbage collection, JSON parsing, thread scheduling, and operating system locks. So here's our first big takeaway. Faster code starts with better measurements, not faster languages. Throwing a supposedly lightning-fast language at a problem without profiling it first, that's a huge mistake. You might literally just end up rebuilding the exact same bottleneck, just in a shiny new language.
Section 1. Profiling with flame graphs. Visualizing the invisible. To actually diagnose these CPU issues, coarse metrics like overall utilization just don't cut it. We need high-fidelity tools. Enter the flame graph, an absolute game changer invented by Brendan Gregg. You can generate these bad boys with tools like pprof or perf. It's kind of like a heat map for your CPU. The y-axis shows your stack depth, basically the call ancestry. The x-axis is your sample population, sorted alphabetically so identical stacks merge together perfectly. But here is the secret sauce, the width. The wider the box, the more CPU time that specific function ate up. You just look for the widest towers, and boom, you found your bottleneck. Section 2. Allocation Churn and GC. Take a look at this super common Python pattern. We're just iterating over some database rows and appending a tiny dictionary to a list. Looks totally harmless, right? Well, in a high-throughput backend, creating millions of these tiny objects forces your garbage collector into absolute overdrive. You see, the CPU time spent on garbage collection depends heavily on the actual number of references it has to scan, not just the raw memory size. So weirdly enough, doing less allocation often completely beats trying to write faster computation code. To put that into perspective, let's look at a real-world case study from Uber. They were investigating a Go service and found a mind-boggling number, 12 terabytes. Get this, the service had a tiny active heap of just about 200 megabytes. But over a 4-hour window, it somehow generated 12 terabytes of temporary garbage. No way, right? Well, the culprits were mostly standard library JSON deserialization and some inefficient logging. The CPU was spending almost half its time just frantically scanning and cleaning up all this allocation churn, instead of actually serving user requests. So how do we fix something like that? Simple. You stop making so much trash. In that same Uber case study, they swapped out the standard JSON parser for an optimized one. That single change reduced allocations by 54% and massively improved their P99 latency. They dropped their CPU loads dramatically, and they didn't even have to change a single line of customer code. Section 3. The Python Saturation Cliff. Okay, so when a Python app gets slow, a developer's first reflex is usually just to spawn more threads. But CPython has the global interpreter lock, the infamous GIL. This is a global mutex that makes sure only one thread can execute Python bytecode at a time, just to keep memory structures safe. So if you're doing CPU-bound work, adding more threads does absolutely nothing for throughput. They literally just take turns. Actually, throwing too many threads at the problem can completely destroy your performance. We call this the saturation cliff. Imagine you're deploying on an edge device or a constrained server. If you oversubscribe your threads, like jumping all the way to 2048 threads when 32 is your sweet spot, you create a massive context-switching storm. The OS scheduler keeps waking threads up, but the GIL just forces them right back in line to wait. Your throughput can plummet by up to 40%, and your latency, it explodes, becoming nearly 5 times slower. You are literally burning CPU cycles just coordinating the waiting line. Which brings us to insight number 2. CPU bottlenecks often come from memory movement and coordination, not the actual computation. Now, languages like Go and Java try to bypass this using end-to-end scheduling. That's where they run millions of lightweight tasks on just a small pool of OS threads to cut down on all that blocking. But here's the catch. If your architecture relies on extreme memory movement or heavy lock contention, you are still going to saturate that CPU, no matter what language you use. Section 4. Hardware and false sharing.
So even if your code looks perfectly independent and thread-safe on screen, the physical hardware might violently disagree with you. There's this nasty little thing called false sharing. This happens when two or more CPU cores modify totally independent variables, but by pure bad luck, those variables happen to live on the exact same hardware cache line. So when core A updates its variable, it instantly invalidates the entire cache line for core B. The cache is just constantly invalidating itself, forcing the CPU to go all the way back to slower memory over and over again. Netflix actually ran into this exact nightmare. They called it Mount Mayhem. They were scaling up containers and suddenly their nodes were just stalling for 30 seconds or more. The crazy part? The CPU didn't even look busy. It was just stuck. They broke out the hardware profilers and found that over 95% of their CPU pipeline slots were stalled. And 57% of those stalls? Yep, false sharing on a global kernel mount lock. You had multiple cores across entirely different physical sockets playing ping pong with the exact same cache line, trying to grab that lock. It caused a near total system freeze. By redesigning the algorithm to dodge that global lock and actually respecting the hardware architecture, they slashed their startup time by 3.5 times. Section 5. Optimize the real bottleneck. Let's do a quick recap of the classic mistakes we all make when we see that 100% CPU utilization warning. Guessing instead of actually profiling is, for sure, number one. Then there's loading massive JSON payloads straight into memory on a single thread. Huge bottleneck. We also just talked about how assuming more threads equals more performance is a total trap, especially in Python. Plus, caching millions of tiny objects in garbage-collected languages, that's just begging for allocation churn. And finally, that overwhelming urge to rewrite the entire service from scratch rather than just zooming in and optimizing the 5% of the code that's actually on the hot path. And that gives us insight number 3. Optimize your architecture before you optimize your language. Smart architectural tweaks, like changing how you stream data or handle concurrency, those are going to give you massive performance gains without the insane risk and time drain of a complete platform rewrite. So what's the game plan here? Here is your concrete checklist. Always profile first with flame graphs so you know exactly where your time is vanishing to. Actively hunt down and reduce object allocations, so stream large data sets instead of loading the whole shebang into memory at once. If you've got heavy CPU work, offload it to background workers. And whenever possible, prefer shared nothing architectures. That's going to minimize lock contention and keep you totally safe from hardware-level nightmares like false sharing. Section 6. Final summary. Here's the truth of the matter. 95% of your code does not need maximum bare metal performance. You are totally fine keeping most of your business logic in highly productive managed languages, like Python, Go, or Java. It is only that absolute hottest 5% that might ever truly need something like Rust or C++. Like we've seen today, when a backend grinds to a halt, those CPU bottlenecks are rarely about complex math. They are almost entirely about memory allocations, garbage collection, thread synchronization, and OS scheduling. I'm going to leave you with this final thought. Don't optimize what looks expensive in your code editor. Optimize what your profiler proves is expensive in production. It is time to stop guessing and start measuring. So what is your flame graph hiding right now?